I would just keep encouraging people to get over their fears and just start using their voices online. Showcase what we do. Please take the video, take the photo, post it online, showcase others outside our industry what we do, because I think the narrative around our industry would start to change.
Greg Sheldon here, your host of Metal, Steel, Manufacturing, and Business Pro podcast, where you learn everything about the metals and manufacturing industry that make your modern day life possible.
All right, cool. Welcome everybody. We were just talking about head lice.
Yes, the epitome of peak parenting.
Yeah.
These days.
Fortunately, I haven't gone through the experience, but Jennifer has, and it's
This is lucky number 3. This is third time through. So we had all the supplies. We threw the pillows in the dryer. We had the trash bags out, throwing all the stuffies.
Oh no, the stuffies.
Yeah, our house looks a little ridiculous right now, but hopefully, we've gotten it under control.
Yeah. So the stuffies, what happens with the stuffies? Like they just go in the garbage, that's it? Or do we...
Oh, no. So you bring the trash bags out, anything with fabric on it, especially stuffies, you're essentially suffocating the lice by putting them in trash bags to make sure that they don't reproduce and keep growing.
Okay, well that makes sense, because with kids I understand how important stuffies are. Yes,
and they like to snuggle right here, so nice transfer and continuous cycle on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't meet up last time. The kid conversation started because I had sickness and I was like not worthy of doing an episode because my kids are sick, which happens when you have young kids anyway.
Yep, absolutely.
But since then you've been away. You went to a trade show, right?
Yes, ISRI 2023. It's the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. They are essentially the recycling association for the United States, and I would kind of say they're global as well. So they had their annual conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was my first time in Nashville in many years, and that city does not stop.
So did you stop?
I am enjoying the peace and quiet here in California since coming back from that. It was really a fun time, but that city is very energetic. I don't know if anybody ever gets any downtime there.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of good things. I've never been, would love to go, but yeah, there's it's got a lot of good stories, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Absolutely.
So at the event, what was like some key highlights and takeaways?
First off, the attendance is one to mention. This event typically brings probably around 4,000 to 5,000 individuals, usually in North America, but there are also some individuals that come from international communities as well.
Yeah.
This year, over 6,500. So it was quite a big jump, and that showed up in numbers. The expo hall was always packed. There were booths everywhere. You couldn't walk down the street, even outside the expo hall, to even just go get lunch or dinner without running into 5-6 people in the industry. Everyone's wearing the badges. There's music flowing out of every single bar or restaurant when you go outside, and so it's very lively, and it was a lot of fun. But the attendance was probably the biggest takeaway. The next one is essentially revolving around the electric vehicles and the end of life recycling of those products. That's going to be a really big challenge for the industry now and in future years.
Yeah, for sure. So are you talking about, instead of mining, not that that'll be replaced, but taking what already exists, recycling that? Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. And also just from a typical end of life, for when you have a car, for instance, when it's done, it can't be salvaged. It just doesn't make sense to financially repair it. It goes to a facility that will shred it down into parts that can be then remelted at steel mills, aluminum plants, etc., into new products. That car can essentially get thrown into a shredder, minus removing some of the liquids and some other things out of there. You can't do that with an electric vehicle. With an electric vehicle, you have to have the safety procedures in place to remove the battery. Imagine when an electric vehicle gets into a car accident and you just can't repair it, right? Now there is a safety issue of, did the battery get damaged? Is the battery going to be a fire risk? How do you handle it in your yard? How do you transport that vehicle to a facility that has safety procedures in place that can then safely remove the battery? And then once you take the battery out, how do you get it to a facility that can actually process and remove the metal and material that's in that battery so that it can be used into a new battery so that it helps keep up with demand? Because yes, mining is still going to be there, but hopefully we don't have to do exponentially more of that, and we can use some of the existing material that we have in electric vehicles. But that there are just essentially a lot of questions that revolve around, how do you handle the cars that are already on the road and will be on the road in the future that have electric vehicle or have essentially batteries in them?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that would be a lengthy process, I would think. Like, is this a private business thing that they need to figure out, or is it a government legislation thing that gets, passed down to private companies? What's your idea on that?
Depends on who you ask.
Of course.
I'm sure one side of party lines would say the government needs to mandate and put those procedures in place, and another side would say that businesses need to figure it out. There are some companies that are out there right now that are in the battery recycling world, and they are helping to work with organizations like ISRI to come up with safety procedures in place. There are conferences that are going on around the United States and globally in terms of connecting battery designers, battery production facilities, and then end of life facilities as well, so that everyone's in on the conversation. But it's not completed, it's not done yet. It's something that is very much a work in progress at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's good though. I'm glad that everybody's thinking about it. Because, you coming from the scrap industry, not so much scrap, I should say, as one of our people in the industry to say it's not scrap, it's recycled metals, right? So in knowing that and coming from that philosophy, it makes a lot of sense on a lot of, like, economically and environmentally, right? So I think maybe that's a good segue to carbon credits, because that's some of the stuff we talked about. We're just jumping right in here, and we'll get back to you and why metals and all that stuff. But I'm curious about carbon credits, and help me understand and the listeners understand how that kind of works in the industry. Because last time we talked, you were just like, whoa.
Yes. Carbon credits, they are here and they're coming. For those that are unfamiliar with carbon credits, they're essentially a stock that you can buy and retire against existing business practices. So if you have a forestry project, if you have a solar farm, if you have a hydro facility that produces green energy, you essentially can produce carbon credits. You're producing things in a way that creates less carbon than what you are pulling in. So you essentially create a credit. Businesses like Amazon that say that they are going to be carbon neutral by 2040, they are doing a bunch of process improvements that are going to reduce their carbon. But there is no physical way that they can organically get to a carbon neutral without using these carbon credits. So what they're doing is essentially they're improving their processes to a point so that it's reducing as much carbon as they possibly can. But then they're going to go out and essentially buy carbon credits from a forestry project in Alabama or a wind farm in, the Netherlands, or
So yeah, I get it. Like, it sounds like bullshit to me, but at the same time, I'm curious, like, what is the idea here? I mean, it motivates a thought process of, being environmentally conscious, but it also motivates, maybe some financial benefits, I'm assuming.
Yes.
trading currency of a new kind called
Mhm.
carbon credits. So what do you think is going on with this? Because I have some of my own ideas around carbon. I mean, we're carbon-based life forms. I mean, I this whole carbon thing's crazy in my opinion, but yeah. So like, what are they really trying to do? Can you talk to that?
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, unless it makes financial sense, unless there's a financial incentive, people are not going to do things in business out of the goodness of their heart, right? And generally speaking, there are some, outliers out there that will absolutely do that. But generally speaking, for you to motivate individuals, money is a factor. So that's where carbon credits come into play. Carbon credits essentially allow businesses to buy credits to help reduce their carbon emissions, if you will, right? But because they're buying these credits, that money then gets transferred to these projects that probably would not have been built if there wasn't a marketplace demanding them, right? So now, because there's a carbon credit industry, you're having additional trees planted, you're having additional wind farms planted, you're having the capital going into green energy projects that probably wouldn't have happened without their ability to sell some of their goodwill, if you will, into a marketplace. And it's a very capitalistic viewpoint, but essentially it marries the environmentals, essentially on the left, with some of the capitalists on the right to come up with essentially a compromise of how we're going to be able to reduce CO2 levels around the planet, but also still make it a financial incentive for businesses to operate in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that makes more sense as an attempt to bring the two sides together, because we definitely need more of that.
Yes,
For
absolutely.
sure.
I recently partnered with Greenway Steel. They are a carbon footprint calculator company. So
Okay.
essentially they are helping businesses recognize and calculate out with a relatively easy to implement software program that calculates the carbon footprint. Because if you don't know your carbon footprint today, you're probably going to need it as a business down the road, because there will be regulations down the road. California is already seeing some of that here in the state that I live in, that you're going to need to know what your carbon footprint is, because eventually you're probably going to start getting some of the government incentives or even mandates down the road to start reducing some of the carbon emissions that you're putting out there. And if you don't know what your baseline carbon footprint is today, then how are you going to know how you're improving down the road?
Yeah.
How are you going to know how many carbon credits are you going to need to reach that, lofty Amazon goal of 2040 carbon neutral? Or there's a lot of knowledge that people need to learn about this particular area to help their business.
Yeah.
And it's coming.
It is coming, and that's like so many things that are here right now, and we're all evolving, and we have to being forced to in so many ways. I'm curious if somebody is deciding I don't need to do that. Like, is there an impact from not doing that, do you think?
Absolutely. Here's a good example. So Greenway Steel was started by ex-Nucor employees. For those unfamiliar with Nucor, it is one of the larger steel making companies publicly traded in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Nucor is getting inquiries from their customers. They sell down the road to the Amazons of the world. And Amazon is wanting to know what's the carbon footprint of the warehouses that they're building, right? So they need to know what the carbon footprint is of the steel. Well, if you look at scopes 1, 2, and 3, Nucor pretty much can tell the customer, based on our processes at the mill plus the transportation to get it there, this is what our carbon footprint is. But if you are a recycled materials supplier to the mill, if you're putting recycled steel into there, and you know what your carbon credit or your carbon footprint is, and your competitor that's also selling into the plant is not knowing what it is, who do you think they're going to pick if it's the same value amount, right?
Yeah.
It's not mandated currently. It's not something that Nucor is pushing on its suppliers at this point, but it will come to fruition one time. And that's just one particular example of going to need to know what the carbon footprint is to continue to do business and be able to add value to your customers.
Fair enough. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I think a value add is always good, and a reason to do business with somebody versus somebody else is always a leg up for somebody. That's cool. Looking at it that way.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's going to be in a lot of different areas, but that's because I'm more steel based. That's the example I come up with.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about that. So you've got a finance background, right?
Yes.
And what the hell are you doing in the metals industry? I know you've been asked this before, but I want to know, and the listeners want to know, like, why is Jennifer in metals?
The easiest answer is a career fair in college. I was a finance major. I thought I was going to go work at an investment bank. And the more that I learned about what that life actually looked like, the more depressing it seemed to me, right?
Yeah.
80-hour work weeks, sitting in a cubicle, probably in New York or Chicago or somewhere, hard commutes, etc. In college, I was standing next to probably the booth that I wanted to talk to, and the company that I ended up working for the first time out of college was the David J. Joseph Company. They're now owned by Nucor Steel. They were purchased by them once I started working for them. And essentially, I started going through the interview process.
That's the reason, right? That they bought.
Yes. Oh, yes, exactly. Of course. The DJJ, they started having me going through the interview process. And honestly, at the time, I was using them for interview practice. But the more and more that I learned about the opportunity, I was like, wait, you're going to give me a company car. You're going to give me an expense account, and you're going to just let me travel the country and make money. That sounds way better than going, like on a train into New York for an investment banking opportunity. It seemed like, you know what, I'll try this for 6 months. And I had no idea what I was going into. My parents were completely surprised when I told them that, went to college 4 years and I'm going to be working in what they thought were junkyards. When in reality, they are very large businesses, operations throughout the country. It's really fascinating. 70% of the steel that's manufactured in the United States is from recycled materials. So these businesses are very instrumental in the support of the manufacturing in the United States, and honestly in global perspective, because we are a scrap rich country. So I thought I'd give it 6 months, and after 6 months, I was having too much fun. So I kept doing it. And then, almost 20 years later, I'm still in the metals industry at this point.
That's awesome. That's how it goes. Anybody that gets into it, it's like, this place is wicked, all the people. And I'm the same way. I mean,
it really is.
Yeah. It's something about the relationships and the people, and there's no bullshit. There's just and there's a camaraderie or something, right? I mean, I'm sure other industries have that too, but this is just my experience because I've been in it all my life, right? So I love it. That's good. So you got into metals, the scrap. Just to add to that, I mean, the metals industry is so incredibly important to everything that happens. We've talked about that countless times on this podcast. And so everybody out there that's working in it, you're part of something that's critical, right? So thank you for your hard ass work. So what's tell me about, so you're a bunch of things, like you've got Magnar Metals. You used to be at Argus Media and you worked with Ry Jerusalem, or maybe I don't know if you worked with him, but I had him on. He's great. So when you were at Argus, were you talking or covering the metals or just commodities more generally, or how was that experience?
So I worked at Argus Media as their VP of business development. So I didn't do editorial and I didn't do sales. Essentially, I took my market knowledge, my industry experience, and I helped translate for our clients how they can use the editorial products that were produced out there, from reports to even just engaging with the reporters, because they, like Ry Drusen, are wealth of knowledge individuals, as well as helping our sales team, who some of them had not worked in the industry, helping them understand how the clients could use the services that they were trying to sell. And then if there were any opportunities to come up with additional price assessments, if there was a new product that needed to be addressed with the marketplace, I helped our editorial team cover it with the sales team to essentially create more value for the clients on that front.
Good, very good. So what did you learn from that experience? It sounds like a lot of people management and understanding people. What was that?
Absolutely. I jokingly said that I got paid to make friends at that job. And it was so wonderful. I mean, that's essentially what business development is you essentially go out, you find people that have issues or needs that you could potentially help them out with, and you help resolve it for them. And that's what I did when I worked at Argus. It was wonderful working with the editorial team, folks like Ry Druzen, who is their senior steel reporter. He is very knowledgeable, talks to a lot of individuals. My time at Argus was incredible because I had come up from more of a steel background. I started off actually trading non-ferrous, and for those that are unfamiliar with that term, not steel, essentially. So anything aluminum, copper, things that didn't stick to a magnet. So I was very familiar with the hedging side of things, watching the markets, the non-ferrous side. And then a lot of my career has been on the steel side. So I had that great background. I did a little bit of ferroalloys, but when I came to Argus Media, they cover a lot more. So they cover minor metals, they cover, a lot of areas that I may not have been exposed to in my career up until that point. So it was a really great learning opportunity for me as well. I was able to bring some of the knowledge that I had to the team, as well as learn a lot from their reporters as well.
Very cool. Sidebar, I'm curious about the color coding of your bookshelf.
The book? Yes.
Why do you do it that way?
I'm a big fan of the home edits. And also, this is a collection of my husband and I's books, and I could not figure out a way to organize them that would make sense, because his are all World War II, historical. He has some human factors, biomedical books up there. And then here I am, the business major, with a lot of my business books up there that have a lot of the, bright colors, things like that. And so that was the easiest way to make it make sense from an organization standpoint. We have one office in our home, and so this is the shared attempt at making it look good for the
it looks good. It looks great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so Magnar Metals, what's that?
Magnar Metals is my company. I started it back in 2016. When I worked for Argus, I did have to idle it just from a perceived conflict of interest. The first time around, it was mainly a scrap brokerage consulting company. My main client was Becker Iron and Metal out of St. Louis, technically Venice, Illinois. And this time around, I will do a little bit of the brokerage side of things, but honestly, it's more about getting our industry out into the forefront. I have a partnership with Greenway Steel on the carbon footprint side of things. I am working on developing a media business to help promote companies within the industry. I've been helping some clients essentially with their social media presence, their online presence, their SEO, to essentially get additional customers, business development, as well as recruitment. Recruitment in our industry is so hard because we don't showcase all the cool things that we do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's just frustrating.
Well, there's just like culture within our culture of, like it's hands-on, it's dirty, and nobody talks about it. I mean, yeah, those things can be true, but there's also a lot of really great things about it, right? You're contributing to society, you're dealing with great people. There is a lot of technology involved. There can always be more.
Yes.
So what is, I love I didn't know you were doing the media thing. That's really cool.
Yes.
and the scrap thing by what's his name?
From the podcast.
Yeah, what pile of scrap?
A scrap. Pile of scrap. John Sacco.
John Sacco's doing a good job getting the word out. And what do you see, like when you went to the trade show? Did you see anybody of our age or younger, like maybe more the younger generation? Was there anybody there?
It's getting better. It has a lot of room to grow, though, I will say. And I was talking to one individual who I used to do business with when I was at AK Steel, and he had mentioned they had spent millions of dollars on an office renovation because they wanted to recruit additional folks into the industry. And so they set it up very much that tech mindset. I think there's a pool table, video game systems over there. And you wouldn't know from the inside that you're essentially at a scrapyard, right?
Yeah.
And I asked, wow, that's so incredible. Where's the video? Can you send me the link? I didn't see it on social media. And he looks at me, and it slowly dawns on him that, wait a second, they spent all this money to essentially help hire people, right? Help encourage them to work there. But at the end of the day, they didn't put it out to the public to be able to showcase that when somebody Googles this company, they're not going to see the offices.
Oh no. Yeah.
So there's still that mindset that needs to be changed from our industry, that we have to keep everything close to the chest. Everything that we do in our business is proprietary, it's secret. If we put it out on social media, somehow we'll lose business. But at the end of the day, if I'm an employee, if I'm in the job market and I want to get a new job and I Google somebody, I can find their website usually. And a lot of the websites are not super great, to be honest. They haven't been updated in a while. That's going to be a negative for a potential candidate. I'm not going to be able to find them on Instagram, Facebook. I'm not going to be able to find them even on TikTok, of all places, right? YouTube. It's going to be very difficult to help the next generation get excited about our industry if we do not show them what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you're being a trailblazer in that way. You're doing all the stuff. So thank you. But more people need to do it.
100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that generation, they're retiring or already are retired. So there's a new generation. We talked about this last time, and what happens is, well, you said this, I didn't, but the old guys are great. There's a lot of wisdom, but they teach this keep it close to the chest mentality to the next generation that's coming. And I don't believe that's the world we're living in.
No, it's not. Social media is how we found each other.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Social media is how I've found many of my clients at this point. I have only been operating a few months at this point, right? And in the past few months, I've had countless opportunities come my way. Individuals reach out for advice,
for sure,
new connections, new leads, all because I put it out there. A really good example of that currently is I have, a passion for metal beverage containers, right? Obviously, I'm in the industry, and yet it never really occurred to me to check to see where the material was coming from. Obviously, these things are made in China. Most everything is, right?
Yes.
But based on what I know on the Chinese steel market, 90% of it is made from scratch, not from recycled materials. So as someone that's been in the recycled industry most of my career, that's pretty ridiculous of me to be buying these products that I know are not coming from recycled products.
Yes.
So I put that out on social media. I made a video and I just said, I have searched. I've exhausted my connections. I've contacted the stainless steel mills that I know in the United States. They don't know of a domestic beverage manufacturer that's using recycled products. That just seems crazy to me, right? There has to be somebody. So by putting it out on social media, I have had individuals that I never would have talked to before reach out to me, and I am getting closer to finding a manufacturer domestically
cool
to be able to move some of this production from China to the United States, and able to use it with EAF recycled material stainless steel. That
Awesome.
never would have happened if I didn't put it out on social media. So think
Absolutely.
about all the opportunities that we're missing out business wise from a metal perspective, from a recycling perspective, by just not putting it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I often think of there's probably some fear too, right? Like getting on the camera, you get used to it, but just if you've never done it, it's a little fearful. But that doesn't mean there aren't people out there that can, right? Like there are people that aren't afraid of that you could hire to do that, as long as you got an idea. The
Yes.
nice thing about today in the world we live in is a lot of these things are so easily accessible because of social media, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. So we'll
And if
get
you need some help, feel free to contact me. I can
yeah,
help out.
yeah, me too. Absolutely. Or I can send you to Jennifer or
Yeah.
whatever. And I have similar situations where like this company, I'm having lunch on a Friday, um, in a restaurant. My phone rings. I have no idea who it is. And this guy, Ed, calls me and he says, "Hey, I've got a customer that, is thinking about selling the business, blah, blah, blah." And we're still talking. And it's like, I'm like, "How'd you hear about me?" He's like, "Well, don't worry about it. You won't know. Somebody told me about you from this thing." And I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
whatever." But I'm just like, that wouldn't have happened because
No.
I'm 2,000 miles away, right? So pretty cool world. I agree.
It
So
really is. The people that I have met and the things that I've seen in my career are fascinating. And when I went down this video journey earlier this year, I started going to the internet. I went to Google, I went to YouTube. I tried to find videos that I could then showcase the things that I remember seeing in my career
yes.
online to try and reach a next generation, maybe folks that are our age that are looking for a career change and have a lot of skills that they can bring to this industry. I could not find the videos. The videos that I could find were either poor quality or they were showcasing the very rare but unsafe accidents that happen in our industry
Oh
that
my
are
God.
usually outside
Horrible.
of our borders. But
Yes.
I couldn't find it. And I know that there are safe, cool videos that exist out there or could exist out there if people just went into their yards, went into their plants to take those videos.
You can make a video at least once a day.
Yes.
And it seems daunting right off the top, but a month goes by like that. And
Yes.
then you've got 30 videos and then you keep going and going. And I mean, it's so easy to post a video today, right?
It really is. It's a lot of anxiety up front.
Mhm.
Absolutely for individuals. If you don't want to put your face on the camera, there are ways that you can do that without having to do it.
Yeah.
I was touring a metal recycling facility here in the LA area recently, and the owner had some questions about, well, what would I put on social media? I said, let's go walk the yard. And there was literally a pile of sinks, stainless steel sinks in a stainless pile, right? But it came from some manufacturer. Literally right there. I'm like, you have everything, including the kitchen sink. It's right there. Like, that's hilarious. That's going to be an interest. There was a really cool bathtub, cast iron bathtub that had come in. People can relate to that.
Yeah.
Show the cans. Show the aluminum cans. People understand what that is. Show the kegs that occasionally come in. Show things that people can relate to. We had a lot of snow this winter in Southern California, really in California in general. So from this particular yard, he had a pile of cars that were stacked up, but in the distance behind the cars, you could see the snow-capped mountains. I'm like, and it was a sunny bluebird day. Take a photo of that. That's incredible. That exactly sums up what we're doing here is we're taking old to produce new to protect the planet, right? Like that's essentially what we're doing in this industry. And those videos
it's right
don't
there.
exist.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, exactly. So there you have it, everybody. Get your shit together.
Yes, start taking more photos, use those voices, get out there.
That's
Show
right.
our industry off.
I know, it's so cool. And like I'm like a kid, right? Like when I go into like a fab shop or welding shop, like it's just like I get the same feeling from like architecture or like bridges. I'm just like, oh my God. And people love to see that stuff. I'm sure I'm not the only one. And then like when you're cutting with a torch, people love to see that part. It's just so mesmerizing because they don't see it every day, right? So
No, you don't. What we think is normal is not normal to most people.
yeah,
What we normally see in our everyday work careers is not what the majority of people see. And
yeah.
I have posted some videos of manufacturing facilities, steel mills, the inner workings of a steel mill on, of all places, TikTok. And a lot of the comments that I've gotten is, I didn't know we did this in the United States. I didn't know that this was a career choice. This looks really cool. How do I find this job? And it just shows that there's a
That's
desire,
awesome.
an interest in what we do. And we're just not essentially feeding the beast. We're not showcasing. We do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, so I wanna, if I can help you in any way with your business, like whatever, I mean, there's always things going on my side of things, and
Thank
we can
you.
collaborate on something, I'm sure, right?
Likewise. Yes.
Um, so what are some of the things that you're seeing like at the trade show? Like there's the battery trend that's
Mhm.
happening. What
Yep.
other things are you seeing for trends in the industry that, we all got to start paying attention to? Like
More.
would AI be one of them?
That's exactly where I was going with that. There is
Yeah,
more and more technology companies that are at the trade shows this year.
yeah,
There are more and more individuals that are seeing that there is a need to improve the way that we've run our businesses in the past,
yeah.
that there are ways to install software, to install AI to help run our businesses more efficiently.
Mhm.
And that was a big note in the expo, is that you could not go up and down any of the aisles without at least one technology company being on that aisle. And so
Yeah.
that's a big change. That's absolutely a big change. One's from communication channels that help individuals essentially communicate and market their material better when they're selling, from internal software that helps essentially track when you're upgrading material that comes in through the process, being able to track it when you sell, move it out. There are really incredible equipment manufacturers now that are including software and
Mhm.
additional technology to really refine and be able to sort even down to, the very tiny pieces of copper that can get, um, pushed out of the machine and sorted. It's really quite incredible. And there is still a lot of opportunity left in our industry to infuse more and more technology into what
Yeah,
we do.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing a lot of posts about the cost of everything, which is obvious, right? I mean, the cost of everything's gone up, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's all the more obvious of a time that we need to start thinking about these AI things and these things that can eliminate redundant tasks, and
Yep.
really increase that bottom line. Because we're getting pinched in other places, interest from the banks,
Yep.
costs, overhead expenses, all that stuff. So, um, what's chief?
Chief is a women's executive network, essentially.
Okay,
It's an
cool.
organization and association that invites women executives from all walks of life and backgrounds and industries, and essentially puts them into a networking organization that allows them to help each other. I'm in a cohort of 12 other individuals that are across the country, and none of them are in manufacturing or metals. And so it's very interesting to see
Okay.
some of the parallels and some of the differences of what they deal with on a day-to-day basis, or the big issues that they have, or the
Yeah,
big wins that they have.
yeah,
So it's been really wonderful being a part of that organization.
interesting. So I'm curious, do you girls, women, I should say, laugh at us men with our egos sometimes? Is that like y'all get together, laugh at us? I'm just
No,
curious.
it's for me, as coming from a male dominated industry, it's
Yeah.
been incredible to meet other women in other powerful roles within organizations, and see how they're handling it and their tips and tricks and things of that nature. I've done a decent job, I would say, over the course of my career of finding other women in our industry and,
Yeah.
using them as an informal peer network, if you will.
Mhm.
ISRI does have a women in recycling group now. It didn't exist when I first started in the industry. And so
Yeah.
we don't always get to connect with each other. We don't always get to bounce ideas off of each other. And also it's just from a representation standpoint to know that there are other women out there in similar roles. It just makes you feel a little less alone out on the island sometimes.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would imagine so. Women are so good in business and they're so quick to adapt, and they are so much more emotionally intelligent. It's refreshing. You don't run into them very often, but when you do,
I'm working on that.
that's right. Anybody listening,
yes,
that's a woman, connect with Jennifer, because
yes,
you'll enjoy the conversation.
absolutely.
So, well, that's good. I think that's awesome. You got to be part of a network of people that think the same, and challenge each other, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's been really wonderful from a personal development standpoint. They do offer seminars with some really incredible speakers that you can learn from. And it's been great to meet people in person in the LA clubhouse here in the LA area and just be able to network a little bit more. I've only been in California almost a couple of years, so still working on my local network down here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always a work in progress. Doesn't matter
Right.
how long you've been. How's California?
I am really enjoying it.
Weather?
Weather is, can't complain today. It's beautiful. I don't check the weather anymore because I know it's just going to be a nice day at this point. Maybe I need to bring a light jacket, and that's about it. California was never on our radar. I'm from all over the United States at this point. I met my husband in Seattle. He's from Texas. We moved to Cincinnati before moving here. We love the West Coast. We love being outdoors, the mountains, the lakes, the ocean is great next door, right? But we never saw ourselves in the LA area. He got a job opportunity when we were living in Cincinnati that would relocate us to Thousand Oaks, California. He works for Amgen, which is a large biomedical firm here.
Very cool.
And I had been working remote since 2016, so it didn't technically really matter where I was. And Ohio is where we're from. We don't have family there. It was a really wonderful time that we lived there. So we made the difficult decision of moving, hopefully, for a while now.
Sure.
I don't really want to move anymore, but California gets is a lot of talking points in the news. It's the fourth largest GDP in the world if you remove it as its own country. There's more manufacturing that happens there than what I was aware of until I moved here. There could be more, but obviously there's some regulations that prohibit some of that. But it's been really quite wonderful from a personal perspective. Our neighborhood is walkable, which is crazy. And I didn't think that was going to be possible in the LA area. There's no busing here because all the schools are built within the neighborhoods. So everyone can either ride their scooters, their bikes,
That's
walk.
awesome.
And they replace playgrounds rather frequently. One of the playgrounds in our neighborhood, I thought was only 20 or 30 years old. I shouldn't say only, but it looked fine to me. And they replaced it. And that's part of what our higher tax dollars go to is our roads are never with potholes. They're freshly paved and lined, and the street cleaner comes once a week to make it look really nice. So I very much live in Pleasantville out here, but it's something that we do pay for, and it's probably not for everyone, but I have to say the weather has been fantastic.
Yeah, it would be, and there'd be so much to do, so much opportunity. I'm gonna have to check it out. So here in Ontario, we pay the same taxes, if not more, and the roads aren't as good, and they don't replace the play structures that often. So what the hell is that all?
Well, you do have a little bit more weather that you have to deal with than
That's
I
true.
do.
That's
So
true. Yes.
there's probably a larger salt bill.
Salt's not that expensive.
Yes. Yeah, no, it really is a place that, depending on where you are in California, I think there's a spot for any walk of life. to enjoy.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay, Jennifer. Well, thank you so much. It's been
Thank you
nice.
so much for having me. This has
You're-
been wonderful.
Yeah, it has. Absolutely. I hope to do it again. Do you have any advice for anybody?
I would just keep encouraging people to get over their fears and just start using their voices online. Showcase what we do. Please take the video, take the photo, post it online, showcase others outside our industry what we do, because I think the narrative around our industry would start to change
Absolutely. I
in a very
agree.
positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Greg Sheldon here, your host of Metal, Steel, Manufacturing, and Business Pro podcast, where you learn everything about the metals and manufacturing industry that make your modern day life possible.